Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series finale of Bosch. A great series finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, there's a lot that went down in this series finale, and I'm going to get the order of things mixed up. I'm going to let you know ahead of time. I do apologize, but kind of breaking some of the stuff down in the series finale. There was that house that Jerry was outside of that was being sold. I was like, what is that? That's not his place, is it? Or is that like his ex's place? I was like, I don't think that's Avril's place. I feel so stupid. I'm like, I don't know what that place was, what the significance of that was. It's probably like, you idiot. It's obviously blank, blank, blank. And I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. Like, dude, tell me. I'll probably figure it out on my own. But I'm like, I didn't recognize what the place is supposed to be, like I said. But whatever the case may be. Some other significant things that went down in this episode. Let's start with like Billet Situation. So obviously, like, her girlfriend is suggesting like she sued the department after everything that she went through, but she's kind of like, no, because basically doing that would be career suicide because she'd just be screwing herself over. She likes her career, and she's like, basically, I think she feels like she can do more good in her position, get everything that she's due, while also making sure it stays within the confines of her career, while also because she'll be able to do what she needs to do and kind of fix the place up. And obviously that's a big disagreement they have. Later on, Irving comes in. Now he's offering her the position because it's like, right, what are you going to do? It's like, well, my partner's suggesting I sue. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? It's like, I'm going to see how things shake out. He offers her the captain position, even saying like, oh, it steps towards a permanent situation because we've known for a while, like, Billets has constantly gotten looked over and just, she's like, I didn't do too well on the orals. And Irving's like, oh, that's not going to be an issue. Implying like he was planning on greasing the wheels a little bit in her favor, But I also took that as like the fact that she shows up now after all that makes me feel like, well, offering her like Cooper's position and even making it permanent, even saying like, hey, I'm sure you're a rising star and yada yada blah blah. I'm like, are you doing that just because it saves the department face? Because if you knew there was a chance she might decide to go down the legal route and you didn't want that, like, it's, in a way it's crazy because like Irving is very self-preserving because, like, truth be told is if the department looks bad, it makes him look bad. So making sure that department stays good. So, I mean, because you can make the argument like he's doing this for that department's sake, but also at the same time, like, like I said, it just seems like it's part of the game of like saving face in that regard is what it all seems like to me, so that scene kind of made me go but I kind of felt bad because I could tell definitely like Bosch and him were going to have issues, and I figured that would affect Billets, especially because she's like on the up and up, and it's like, oh, everything's good, but it's like, nah, the way Bosch has kind of set this thing up, it seemed like, that might kind of end up crumbling down. I wasn't sure at the time. Still don't think that's going to necessarily affect too much. That's the sad, situation of this episode too, but we'll get to that soon enough. But for Harry, he's talking to Reese, trying to find out what she knows, and basically she gave him the lowdown on that. Basically, it is a RICO case that, right, CIT's getting involved. It's like usually they come in after the fact, like when like a lot of stuff is being involved, or a mass arrest, and it's like, right, is figuring out like, right, they're waiting for Mickey to get everybody's confessions, and then they're going to take everyone down. And so that's as much as Reese can give him because she's not in the know about everything. So he ends up calling him your boy Luke, which I completely forgot Matthew Luke was in this show. I was like, oh, which obviously interesting time. And obviously just saw you and Dean literally 2 days ago on Good Girls again. So it's like, but I vaguely remember his story. I can't remember it too well, but I vaguely remember. It's like, all right, you were a part of the show. I completely forgot. It was an earlier season. I don't know if it was a more recent. I want to say, I don't think it was season 5. I want to say it was earlier than that. But like I said, this is my problem. Like, so much of this show, like, I've forgotten so much because it's been a while. But he wants Luke's help, like, finding out the location. Because basically, it's like, the FBI gets what they want to get on the recordings and stuff like that. And then I'm going to grab Mickey and I'm going to bounce. That way, the moment I arrest him, like, the DA and everything will have no choice but to go ahead and file charges, because if they don't, it's not going to look good optically, because it's like, whoa, here's this killer, you just let him bounce. So that was kind of Bosch's initial plan, Luke was kind of hesitant, but it's like, this guy he's killed 5 people, one of them being a 10-year-old girl. And Luke is like, it's not my case. Bosch is like, but it's mine. And he's like, there has to be, for him, it's like, there's got to be some justice in this world. We can't just let him get away scot-free from all of this. And later on, Luke does text him for the address and the time and everything. But other than that, we had Bosch sitting down with Scott. Now, he knew Scott would have some know-how about all this, because I'm skipping over it, but obviously, the commission gets together and Irving gets his second term, which I love that it's like everyone being like, oh, wow, wasn't expecting that. Jerry wasn't expecting that. Harry wasn't. Even Billet's being like, oh, I didn't expect the tea leaves to go that way. And Harry was like, no one did, especially because I guess everyone knew like Delgado's issues with Irving, probably even knew that he was aiming for Irving's job. So everyone thought things were going to fly the way of him not getting his second term, but now he did. That kind of ultimately ended up leading to a lot of questions, because that's when Harry started piecing it together, like, right, maybe, feeling like, the fix was in, because, like, both him and Jerry are like, yeah, things weren't going his way, and then suddenly Delgado, like, shifts and takes his side. He's like, yeah, something's up there. And even Anderson was there reporting it. So Bosch sits down with Anderson, and Anderson basically talks about what he knows. Essentially that, yeah, there's a rumor going around that he basically pressured the mayor into, like, and it's like, right, there's a case file and everything. Like, so basically, Anderson knows what he was talking about. Like, so he gave Bosch a rough idea of what was going on. And then Bosch kind of lays it out. Well, no, because I don't think he talks about it at that time, but hearing all of that, Bosch immediately figured out what was what. It's like, right, to get what he wanted, Irving made a deal to get, the files on Lopez, and then traded Mickey for it. And Bosch, like, the moment, like, Irving was leaving the East Department, like, Bosch confronts him and is like, I know what you did. And he's like, excuse me? It's like Sonia Hernandez. He was like, what? It's like the little girl. He's like, I know her name. It's like, the fact of the matter is you're letting her killer go free. And once again, he's still trying to justify it. It's like, but even Bosch calls him out for his BS to be like, yeah, but this is the confrontation I wanted, because it's the right confrontation to have, because it's like, you traded away for what you wanted. It wasn't like it was for the greater good of, like, yeah, you want to justify, but like, oh, you're taking a lot of bad people off, but you're letting this man walk away with murder. Like, that's not fair, considering the terrible crime he committed. You're just going to let him walk on it. And Bosch wasn't about to have that. And Bosch said, fuck you. And then, like, Irving turns him, he's like, that's your last free one, Bosch, and just kind of leaves. So I think it was then, in that moment, Bosch had decided what he was going to do. Like, because every, like, gamble he was trying to work on kind of got shut down, because he had also talked with Collins earlier in the episode and found out, like, right, on high, it all came down from Irving. But hearing all these other pieces, hearing what Collins had to say, this whole thing with him getting his second term as chief, hearing what he heard from Scott is what fueled it all in for him. So, and Bosch was like, I have to do something with this. So that's why he decided to concoct all this plan, because, like, for him, it's like, this was his gamble, his way to potentially get Mickey to kind of go down. Like, this way, he was kind of making it seem like it was going to be a win-win-win all across the board. And Jerry pulls him aside about, like, his plans and everything. And Jerry's pointing out the fact is, you doing this is career suicide. But Bosch is like, I got to do something. I can't let this go. That little girl deserves justice. I can't let this go, Jerry. Because it's also like, and that's the sad aspect of this, is Jerry saying, like, but the futility of it. Because it's like, right, no matter what you do, like, the FBI will come banging down your door. Like, even if you get him arrested, that doesn't mean the DA will actually bring up charges against him. The FBI will still get what they want, and Irving and the FBI will just be breathing down your neck for this. So it's like, it's almost like futility. And I think that's the complicated aspect of justice, that it can almost feel like that sometimes. But for Harry, it's like, there has to be something. Like, it has to mean something. Like, like, we can't just let, like, once again, someone like Sonia fall through the cracks. Because even later on, Jimmy's looking, and it's like, at the pictures, and he's like, cold case, unsolved cases. He's like, yeah. Jimmy's like, he's got a few of them himself. And he's like, who's that? The tamale girl? It's like, Sonia Hernandez. And Jimmy's like, you remember her name? You know her name? And he's like, Yes, and he's like, good. I think it's more so because, like, obviously the other people, Harry doesn't know their names, and I think Jimmy's probably got some cases like that himself of, like, names of people he doesn't know. But also, I took, and this is maybe the wrong way to take it, it's like, right, you know her name. She's not just the tamale girl. She is a name. She has a name. She has an identity. People know who she are. She was missed. So that's important because everybody's somebody, you know? And that's always something to remember in these cases, whether it be cases that are currently solved or unsolved. Like, I think I took it as that. Whether that's 100% what Jimmy meant or whether he just simply meant, like, it's a good thing you know her name and she's just not another nameless person. I think that could all, you know, doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. They can kind of be together as well. But regardless, Bosch wanted to kind of go at this alone, but Jerry goes like, no, I got your back. And part of me wonders, because we know that Harry met with Billet about, like, the transfers and stuff like that. And so at first I was like, okay, so what is up with this? Like I was wondering what he was doing, because I was feeling like he was suggesting himself for somewhere else, but it turns out he was suggesting Edgar for somewhere else, for RHD. And Jerry's like, what's up with that? Like, but I think it's because Harry, at first I interpreted it as Harry wanting Jerry as far away from him. It's like, you cross certain lines, I've kind of corrupted you being my partner and everything, so I wanted you to kind of have a fresher start. But I think it's because Harry already had it planned of what he was going to do, and he needed Jerry as far away so that, like, any blowback would fall on him and not Jerry. I mean, granted, they were still partners for a long time, so there'll probably still be some, but being in a different department, not being in homicide, you know. But I think for Harry, it's like, no, this is a good place for you with everything, you know. And it turns out we got the other postings. It seems like his partner's going to be Vega, and Pierce has got the night shift, which, like, Mank, Crate, and Beryl are trying to make him feel better. I love, like, Beryl being like, oh yeah, I met my first wife there, and it's like we find out the circumstances in which he met her. It's like, yeah, but that didn't last long. But what about what's your longest marriage? She was like, the fourth one. And then Crate's is like, weren't you only married 3 times? He's like, no, I'm counting common law as well. I'm like, wow, man. Because, like, Pierce is just, like, devastated by all of this. And obviously, it's like, it's not the job position he wanted. Hell, even Vega being like, oh, it's hard working with Harry. But, you know, Jerry's like, Harry's Harry. And she's like, I wish I was working with you, you know, Jerry, because he's at least easier to get along with. Obviously, like, Vega and Harry had their back and forth, but also he's kind of a bit of a hard ass. And just indirectly having worked with him, it's like she'd rather work with someone that's cool, calm, and collected, like Jerry, easygoing. It's like, Harry's kind of a hard nut to crack, essentially, because it's like, you know, it probably took years of their partnership for Jerry and Harry to be where they are, you know? So, but Pierce is sitting down talking to Harry about everything, and he's just, you know, and then Harry's like, don't worry, it's all going to be okay, young blood. You're good at what you do. You're going to find your way forward. Like, don't, like, you know, he's like, would you be okay if going from homicide to night shift? And then Harry was like, oh no, God, it'd be horrible for me. I love that. But he's also like, I wonder, did he know how things were going to shake up by the end? Maybe he I don't know. No, I don't think he saw everything playing out the way they ultimately did. So I was wondering, like, but I guess he figured, like, Rondell, you're a good cop. You're going to find your way. Like, the night shift is just the beginning. You're going to find a way forward. So I wonder, I'll go ahead and talk about it now without going into things until we get to that moment. But I'm wondering, with the way things shake up at the end, does that leave a position open for Rondell? So maybe things kind of inadvertently ended up working. So him and Vega might actually be working together again, depending on how things kind of shake out. Maybe someone else gets that position. But an interesting thing that coincides with that, too, is Maddie. She ends up talking to Antonio because for her, she's still unsure what she wants to do with her life. So now she's even considering, like, you know, putting in an application for, like, the LAPD, you know, and it's like, is that what you want? But for her, it's like, I need to do something. She wants to do something that matters. Like, Antonio, as well as her dad, have already figured out their paths. She's trying to figure out hers. And so she ends up clicking it and ends up bringing it up to her dad. And he was like, oh, she's like, I thought you'd be happier for me. I think he didn't want to, like crash her dreams, because this is what she wants to do. She wants to help people. She wants to be there for people. But I think for Harry, with this whole Irving thing, before even things really hit their, like, peak in the episode, well, I think they kind of have, but, like, things really, really escalate by the end. But I think by that point, Bosch, for one, he didn't want, you know, it's like, you don't want your daughter mixed up in a job. You know how scary this job is, how not everyone ends up making out of this job. You've seen that firsthand. You know that personally. But also, like, the hardships of that job and what it takes away from you. He wouldn't want that from his daughter. He wouldn't want her to lose any of who she is because of this job, because it will eat away at you. But also, it's like, I think is also another side of it. He's seen kind of how things work, the politics of everything, like how much of an impact that can have on things. And I think for him, maybe he just didn't want Maddie part of that war. But he's like, no, I'm proud of you. It's just like, we'd never talked about it before. She's like, right, but at the end of the day, it is my choice. And she's like, even because I'm a legacy, like my mentor saying like, oh, like I could take my first like ride with you or something. So it's like, yeah, we could be, doing our thing together. And he's like, yeah, because she even said last season like she wanted to be an attorney. So like, hey, you book them and I cook them. But now she's on the more forefront of like, I guess she feels like she could do more good as a cop. I think everything that she went through, obviously, her mom being an FBI agent and everything, I think like all of that kind of influenced her decision of like, right, like wanting to do like, because I think a prosecutor deals with things after the fact. And I think for Maddie, it's like being a cop, she sees like also like when she has a very special perspective, and that's her dad, how invested he is in helping getting justice for people. I think that means the world to Maddie. And I think for her, it's like, right, I can be there at the beginning. Like, you can only do so much as like a prosecutor. Like you're there after the fact. Some cases, and with a cop you are as well, sadly. But I think at the very least, you're on the forefront of helping people more directly, whereas like a prosecutor is kind of well after the fact. So I think it's a little bit different. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing to kind of ultimately keep in mind. But ultimately, when it does come to the Mickey thing, Jerry and Bosch, Bosch sneaks in and everything. What I thought was interesting though is like, I guess like I figured the FBI would be at least a little less pissed with you if you let them get what they needed. But it's like, no, I guess because Mickey wasn't there long enough to talk, shake hands with people, yada, 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 and get the information, like be able to take them all down. Because I guess Bosch knew that if he waited too long, he'd need to grab Mickey now before when the FBI wasn't expecting it. Because if he waited, the FBI would have immediately raided, and it would be hard to get through that net because it would have turned potentially into a gunfight. Like there would have been a lot going on. So grabbing Mickey now was the better option. It's more middle fingers to the FBI, but he's like, I don't care. You and Irving like struck that deal. Screw you guys. Not my damn problem. So when it comes down to it, though, he and Mickey get Edgar out of there. Luckily, Edgar wasn't on the recording like the wiretap. So, like, when they do hear, they're like, they heard Bosch's voice, they heard Bosch's name, so they know he's involved. Luckily, Jerry wasn't on the recordings, and I think that's why Bosch was like, yeah, don't get involved in this, brother, because I think it's, for him, it's like, he knows specifically that Edgar wasn't on any of the recordings. He's the one that went in there firsthand. People might have saw him, but nothing would necessarily fall back on Edgar in that. Obviously, Brenner calls up Irving pissed as hell, like, yo, Bosch fucked us. He fucked our entire case. At the very least, we could get some semblance of this, like, rebound if we can get Mickey. But if he gets booked, we're screwed. So Irving calls Bosch. Bosch is ignoring his call. He heads down to East, where Bosch and Jerry are bringing him in. And obviously, Bosch confronts him, Mickey, about like, oh, they didn't even mean anything to you. And he's just like, yeah, I'm when the FBI roll up here, I'm gonna say goodbye to you or something. And then like, Bosch kind of punks him a little bit, and he backs up against the wall. He's like, you want to act so damn tough? You got scared just then. But it's like, ends up talking to Scott, revealing everything. And it's like, right, run the story. Because even Scott was like, there's going to be a lot of pushback on you for this, isn't it? And he's like, I don't care. Just tell the truth. No matter what happens, just tell the truth. And so he tells Jerry, like, right, I got the murder book ready. Do what you will with it. What you do is up to you if I'm not back in the morning and stuff like that. Irving comes in, gets Mickey, and it's like it's too late. He's already in the system, so there's no pulling that out. But it's like you're suspended, and Bosch takes the hit, but he doesn't care because at the end of the day, it's still the thing of, was it worth it in the end? Everyone else is nearby, being like, damn, overhearing everything. But for Bosch, it's like he needed to do something. It had to matter, And then Mickey's getting to walk. That's because even Irving knows how messed up this is, because he's like, let him out of here before I change my mind. It's like, you weren't going to change your mind. You've invested too much in this. And the fact of the matter is it's more so looking out for your own ass at the end of the day. But sadly, the story doesn't have a happy ending, as Sonia's dad shows up and kills Mickey, and he gets put down as well. I mean, obviously, like, the cops had no choice. Like, he was holding a gun and everything. Like, they put him down. And he said the last words he says is the title episode, por Sonia, I'm assuming just for Sonia in Spanish, but it sucks. I was like, please don't I already knew because of the whole Sobel thing that not everything was going to be a happy ever after with this whole situation. But I was like, please don't. A lot of these cases have depressing ass endings. It's like there's no like happy ending. Once again, that's the sad truth of justice. Not everything is going to have a happy ending, but it's like for Bosch, he's pissed at Irving. He's like, this is all your fault. If you just let us get Mickey, if you had just let us do our damn job, we could have gotten justice. Yeah, Mickey is dead, but that man doesn't get the full, like, he should be alive to have justice for his family. This isn't justice for them. He just, because also Mickey kind of gets off scot-free, and this is all on you. And he gives Irving, it's like, badge and nothing, here, have it, keep it. And it's like, what are you without your badge? She's like, well, we'll find out. I was like, whoa. So that's what I'm getting. And we walk away from things there. And I'm like, Jerry's trying to stop Harry, but it's like, nah, like for Harry, this was just the last straw. Just like how, it's not just as simple as like finding a killer and locking him up. That's for him, like, that's all it should be. There shouldn't be all these other contributing factors in it. So that's what kind of bums him out, I think. I didn't talk about it earlier, but I'm curious. I'm trying to remember the order of things. Did he, I'm trying to remember when they got word that Chandler was coming out of her coma. I'm trying to wonder if that was like I'm trying to figure out if that was because Maddie goes and visits her. I'm wondering, like, did that happen before she decided to join it? I mean, she'd already made that decision, but probably like Chandler's situation probably escalated that. So, but it's good to know that she's out and about. Once again, whether she returns to her job, that's a whole thing. But at the end of it, though, Maddie comes to Bosch, and she's like, I heard everything from Jerry. It's like, you quit? And he's like, yeah. She's like, well, what are you going to do? He's like, you mean, what am I going to do with my life? She's like, yeah. And he's like, I don't know, but I'm sure something will come along. And she comes over, and she's like, I want to help. That's why I was, like, wondering, like, I didn't know how to necessarily take that. Like, obviously, at the very end, we see Bosch signing some stuff out to be a private detective, which is like, yeah, the FBI's going to do a background check. He's like, the FBI does a background check. She's like, is that an issue? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, you're their least favorite person right now. To be fair, you got some friends in the FBI who'd kind of be okay. Like, I think Reese and Luke, not as much. I think Luke would still have your back to a certain extent. I think Reese would. I mean, it's understandable. Like, she's kind of in a shitty situation, and like you were kind of put in a shitty situation. So I think there's still a good relationship there at the very least. Yeah, but the FBI, Brenner in particular, is probably going to make Bosch's future a living hell because it's like, oh, remember how you fucked me on that huge RICO case? Yeah, But it's like, yeah, that was kind of on you. Because that was also a thing, too, about like whether this was all going to end up okay because Irving, could always get to Scott Anderson before the story goes public. So it could be like, almost, as Jerry was almost saying, like, it could all be for nothing. And at the end of the day, the sad effed up thing is it kind of was for nothing. The FBI didn't get their case, so they're kind of screwed, which is going to make them even more pissed at Harry. But Harry's like, nah, fuck you. Fuck you, fuck Irving, like, for making this stupid deal in the first place. Like, the fact of the matter is, all you had to do is let me get Mickey, like, we could have found a solution, but they didn't, And Irving normally would have had their backs, but he was looking out for himself, which once again he'll justify it, be like, it's for the greater good, yada yada yada. I still call bullshit on it, but like I could get why Irving believes that. I just think he shouldn't have done what he did. And also, like I brought up too, what kind of effect is this going to have on Billets? Just just some thoughts, about like whether she still. I mean, because it also depends on Irving. Like, once again, would he be able to get to Anderson beforehand? Because Anderson publishing that story would still cause some issues. Mayor Lopez won't look good. If that eventually comes up about her situation, but it's more so about what the FBI and Irving were doing. Like that. I mean, I think everything was kind of put on the table in that moment because Scott already had the rumors about Mayor Lopez anyway, but like that combined with what Bosch told him probably filled in a lot of gaps. So I don't know. It probably gives Irving a headache, but like I don't know what that kind of means for Billet's future. Maybe this has an effect on what she ultimately decided to do. But like I was saying, like I don't know whether Maddie was deciding like, no, I'm going to help you. Like, so is she going to be working with Bosch at his, being a private investigator? Like, will she kind of work there? Like that way, you kind of get a little more helpful. You're helping people. So when she says, "I want to help," I wonder if she's still going to go through the LAPD thing. Because also, I'm sure Harry's name is kind of trashed a little bit now. Like he basically career suicide, and he quit. So, what I brought up earlier too, like, does that mean Pierce and Vega are now partners? Because that leaves that vacancy, but not unless someone else ends up filling that vacancy. So, a lot of questions. It's actually something, because I actually referenced this a little earlier in this series, because I felt like, and in the season was like, I felt like Bosch was going to walk away at the end of this just with everything that was going down this season, and it kind of does. Not 100% the way I saw things playing out, but because the reason why I brought that up is because I remember, I want to say it was like when I did my nerd mode on Bosch before season 6 came out, I'd actually looked into it a little bit, and like I think you can find it on the Wikipedia page, but like every book is listed and it tells you what position Bosch is in, because he's not a homicide detective the entire time. I want to say private investigator is what he does at one point in time in the books for a little while. I want to say like he becomes like, doesn't he become like something related to the fire department or something like that? Maybe not. I don't know. Or at the very least, maybe he investigates like arson cases like that. Like maybe he's like something of that. I don't remember. But, like, I know it was, like, a multitude of different, like, jobs and positions he had over the course of, like, the series, the books specifically. So that's why I'm not too surprised with the ending. Because I feel like, once again, it's been, like, over a year since I looked at it. But I want to say one of the job positions he had over in some of the books was a private eye. So that kind of came as no surprise, though. So I just looked into it. I'd heard rumors about there being a spinoff. I read some articles just now and finding out the spinoff is in works specifically at IMDb TV. So that's definitely going to be interesting. But it is picking up after the series finale. From the little excerpt I was reading, it's like they haven't even begun filming yet, but it's supposed to start like later this year. But essentially it's picking up with Bosch as a private investigator. It's supposed to be like 18 months after this finale. And apparently he's going to be working with Chandler, which I was like, oh, that's interesting, as they work for justice. And it also hinted, it was saying that it's also going to focus on Madeline having her issues working at LAPD. I'm sure with the aftermath of everything that went down, her dad, the stain against her dad, the black marks against him, and that kind of being held against her to a certain extent, but also probably just like knowing the way the system works and it not being as clean as she would hope, like that justice sadly isn't so. It should be a little more black and white than it is. I mean, that obviously, like, I mean that in the terms of how justice is kind of dispensed. Like, obviously, like, Bosch has kind of had to deal with, in particular, definitely this final season being an example of just, like, the politics of things and just, like, how other things can kind of overshadow, like, like this whole arson investigation. But I thought those were some interesting developments. So those are at least some of the cast members we're aware of. Like, this was from, like, an LA Times article I think I was reading, and it was from, like, 2 days ago. So other than that, who knows what other characters will return permanently, what other characters will kind of pop in. Because obviously, he's going to be doing the same, but maybe he'll run into Jerry. Maybe he'll run into, Crates and Bear. Like, it depends on how they plan on doing it. But I'm excited to know that, yes, this chapter of Bosch is closed. They did put it around quotes, Bosch finale, because who knows what I don't think the new series even has a technical title yet. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I'm kind of glad to know, like, because it's also like, this will be kind of a sad note to kind of end this off, but this is one chapter. Like I said, in the books, he's picked up many different professions from what I remember. So it's pretty dope to know, yes, there is whereas this is closing, there is a new chapter beginning. So I'm excited about that. But regardless of everything, for those who may or may not be returning for the spinoff, it's still nice, to kind of get an open, closed chapter of this book that is the Bosch saga in this regard. But I'm really excited too, because 18 months later, that gives a lot of time for all of this to play out. So we don't know what Irving's situation is going to look like. Whether those characters return or not is going to be a big question. But also, like, even if they don't return, we'll still get answers to, like, what was the aftermath of this finale. So that is something to, be considered. But I mean, this has been one hell of a ride. Like I said, like, I kind of jumped on the Bosch bandwagon late. Once again, I didn't start watching the show until sometime before season 6, so I'm still kind of like, I haven't been watching it since the beginning, but I'm glad I picked up on the show because I think it's a great, as someone who loves crime dramas, even procedurals, I think this show is very interesting in the way it approaches things, the characters it has, and the complexities of, like, the justice system. I think the show doesn't shy away from those, and I think that's what makes it very interesting, like, kind of showing you, like, once again, other cop shows do it too, but it's just like something about the way Bosch handles like that. Yeah, justice isn't always justice in the form that you would want it to be, so that's a whole thing. But to the cast, crew, creators, everyone involved in this series in some shape or form, whether it be Michael Connolly, the author of the books, or whether it just be everyone who helped run the show, thanks for bringing such an awesome show to life, and I can't wait to check out the spinoff on IMDb TV. I'm excited to see Bosch's next chapter, especially if he's going to be working with Chandler. That's going to be so weird. I mean, to be fair, they worked together in season 5, but this is going to be on a different level. This is going to be pretty consistently working together. That's going to be nuts. And what's next for Maddie's next chapter in her life, working with the LAPD? Just so much, So I wish everyone the best of luck in their future endeavors. But I'll kind of leave things off there. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.